So I'm very interested to see what's along the bottom in this area here. Yes. Ready to go?
I've spent many years diving along the BC coast, working with the Underwater Archaeological Society of British Columbia, doing research and recording wrecks and mapping out wrecks. No longer a commercial dive. I retired from that industry, but I do a lot of sports diving as well, and I love wreck diving in particular. And this is probably one of the premier places in the world to do that. Went to an area called the Dog Patch, and we were going to do a preliminary survey of the bottom to see what was there. It's an old commercial harbor, stretching back, 125, 130 years, and it has since become a working fishing harbor. And of late, there's seems to be a lot of transient people who've taken up residency in the area and living on boats in there. So I was very curious to find out what was actually down there. There's been a lot of conjecture regarding, industrial pollution, domestic, or I should say residential pollution in the area, and we were very curious to ascertain what is really down there and what impact it may have on the environment.
Just getting ready to go in the Dog Patch here. We're going to go check the bottom out. We've got a survey planned all in mind. I'm going to get towed behind the boat on a sled, and we're going to videotape the bottom as we go, and we're going to see what we can see down there. Who knows? It's been an industrial area and a play area for 150 years. So anybody's guess what's down there, but we're going to find out. Okay.
I would have liked to have done more of an extensive survey of the area. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we found a lot of interesting artifacts and wrecks in a very small area. We probably only explored maybe 10 or 15% of the inner harbor area, if that. And we only made 2 sets of dives using a sled, and which enabled us to cover a large amount of territory in a very short time with very little exertion. So, but in our initial sleds surveys, we didn't find an awful lot in the shallower regions. A little bit of domestic garbage, but it was when we moved out into the deeper waters where we're looking at between 30 and 40 feet, and where there's the existing piles there that were steel and concrete piles, which were installed, probably almost a century ago, to support the massive dock facility, which was utilized to transport coal out of the barges and ships that were transported off Vancouver Island. And it was out in those particular regions where we found, most of the artifacts and wrecks. And it was, once we sort of hit that spot, it was like, it was mind-boggling what was down there. It truly was, and it was literally shipwreck upon shipwreck. The visibility wasn't all that particularly great. There was a fair bit of sediment in the area, but and of course, being at 40 feet or so, it was actually fairly dark. But when we located the wrecks, it was quite incredible. You'll be swimming along the bottom, and a shadow would appear in front of you and over top of you. And as you approach the shadow, you realize you're in the presence of this very large vessel just sitting upright in the bottom. And then you'd swim up the side of the wreck and onto the deck. And then you start exploring from there. And it was actually quite exciting because you never really knew what you were going to see, what you were going to find. And most of the wrecks I located, the larger wrecks I located, were probably in the area from between 40 feet and 60 feet. There was at least one sailboat we located. Its mast had collapsed and fallen off to one side and was laying alongside the wreck. And there were also, like I said, several fishing boats, commercial fishing vessels in the 45 to 60 foot range as well. Once again, most of these wrecks have been down there. I would estimate at least 8 to 10 years for most of them. It was hard to discern its overall shape. And that's because of the marine life which has attached itself to the wreck and the interfered, since it's sinking. We also located numerous, and I lost count, of smaller boats in the 18 to 25 foot range, fiberglass and wood runabout small fishing boats, literally lit at the bottom. But once again, most of the wrecks were located literally in piles, and the only thing I can determine from that is that they sank while at the dock, and they landed on the bottom, and 5, 10, 15 years later another vessel sank, and literally landed on top of the previous vessel. So I found, 3 and 4 and 5 vessels either on top or right next to each other. So from a diver's perspective and looking at wrecks, there's a lot to see down there, and the wrecks are literally overlapping. It's an exciting place to dive. There's lots of things to see. There's a lot of artifacts on the bottom. Most of the fishing boats that sank had artifacts or items still with on the deck. There's generators, there's fishing nets, there's milk crates full of miscellaneous boat parts, zincs, motors, a variety of things. Everything you'd have on a deck of a working vessel is sort of still sitting there on the deck. We also located numerous piles of old wire rope and cable, which I found very interesting. I don't think they came from particularly the fishing fleets in recent times. I think they're probably those huge piles of cable, which some of them are in the diameter in the range of 2 to 3 inches in diameter. They're heavy industrial cables. I assume they came from the working time or the time when the harbor was a working harbor for the coal industry and the forestry industry as well. The artifacts on the bottom spanned, 2, 3, 4 generations easily, and it's interesting to see it down there. There's a lot of people living on board their boats in the area, and there was some speculation that there was a fair bit of recent domestic household garbage being thrown into the harbor. What my survey found was that just really isn't so. I was very surprised how little domestic or household garbage there was down there. There was obviously there's a few old beer cans and some sardine cans and the odd paintbrush, but for the most part, the bottom is actually quite clean in that regard, and I found that very surprising. And what else I also found surprising is the marine life down there. It's very, very prolific on the wrecks and around the piles in particular. The bottom of the harbor itself is a flat, granular bottom. It's very muddy. There's loose silt. It doesn't take much to stir up the bottom. There's residue of coal, obviously, from the days when they were transporting coal out of the area. But other than that, like I said, there was very little garbage. But wherever there was debris, whether it's the industrial debris, the wire ropes, the wrecks, or whatever, life just clung to it. And there was an abundance of crab, both rock crab and Dungeness crabs, on the wrecks themselves, around the wrecks. Lots of barnacles, mussels. We saw oysters. There was very large white and orange sea anemones, some of them in the 1 meter range. Just have some huge creatures. There's sea cucumbers down there. We saw scalpins and juvenile sea perch, and I saw a rather large, juvenile lingcod as well. Flashed by me. There was a lot of marine life clinging to the debris that is down there, and what these wrecks have done, what the old piles have done, has created almost like an artificial reef, and it brought life to a bottom which would normally be desolate. These types of organisms need something to anchor to, and in that thick, silty, muddy area, they can't do that. So with the wrecks and the wire rope and all the other things that have gone down there, it's provided a perch for life to flourish upon. And you've got a whole new ecosystem growing down there that wouldn't be there otherwise. The life came because of the wrecks. From a recreational standpoint, I think it is a potentially fun dive, but also you also got to realize it's a potentially hazardous dive. All right, it's relatively shallow. We're looking, like I said, 30 to 40 feet, where most of the artifacts and wrecks are located in. But there is an existing working harbor above. You've got vessels moving in and out. You've got numerous vessels permanently moored over your head. There's working barges moored in the area, and one of the areas where I found a clump of wrecks directly above is a very large working barge.
Oh, I got fouled in a mooring line.
Somebody is using it for working on other vessels and stuff. So there's a permanent barge. So you're constantly diving and working underneath boats and docks and barges. It's not something I would classify as an amateur dive in any sense. The potential of getting fouled in the wreckage down there is huge. There's literally cables and chains and mooring lines crisscrossing in your path. It would be very easy to get fouled in some of this debris. Like I said, you're swimming along, you see shadows, and all of a sudden you realize you're under a wreck or in a wreck, and it happens that fast. I think from a sports diver perspective, yes, it's very interesting. Yes, I would do it. I would go back to visit it again. There's a lot of artifacts down there, and it presents a unique diving opportunity in that regard. It can be done from the beach. There's easy access from Transfer Beach. You could swim out to this particular area and dive. I wouldn't recommend it for an amateur or a casual sports diver because of the entanglement hazards, and there is a lot down there. What I also found interesting too was remnants of the old working harbor. I ran into a steel structure which I determined to be the base of an old crane. Bottom, which I found was very interesting, was a length of chain. Now this chain and the lengths of it were 10 inches and as thick as my wrist. Just a massive chain sitting down there on the bottom. It's obviously from the industrial age of the harbor. How long it's been down there, I got no idea. And of course we did find some more contemporary stuff in the form of a toilet bowl sitting on the bottom, and a 9.9 horsepower engine cover for an outboard motor, as well as numerous deck chairs and lawn chairs. I literally found a stack of the plastic chairs, all still neatly nestled together, sitting on the bottom. Most of these chairs, I would assume, were blown off the decks of boats during windstorms and winter time and this kind of thing. So that's how they probably finished up down there. Some of them are, you know, the canvas and the seating has long since rotted away, but the aluminum frames are still there. The more recent plastic chairs are still sitting there fully intact. And pull them out and pressure wash them. You can put them in the backyard. The life came because of the wrecks.